says new DMZ 2026 rumors have surfaced. Newly enhanced AI will be introduced. And we know this is super important because AI in DMZ right now, I think everybody can agree, are extremely frustrating. They're not fun, which is what they should be, right? It's not whether the AI should be too easy or too hard. It's that they should be fun. They should be an enjoyment to like engage with, right? They should be hard, they should be easy, etc. But they should have like really nice mechanics as to how they work. There should also be a lot more variety in the types of AI, right? There should be some AI that maybe run at you with melee weapons, or, you know, ones like we have in Koshi, but they're only in Koshi, like the suicide bombers that run at you and explode, you know, that you'd have to shoot before they get to you, you know, different varieties of AI. I also think it's important that AI actually have better loot. Loot's something that we'll definitely talk about, but I think that's important, that AI has a little bit better loot. I think dropping a plate by minimum, if the plate system ends up working the same, which that's another topic, right? So, you know, let me know what you guys think about that. The other thing they talked about, and this is really big news, is that there will be 12 to 16 teams of 3 each match. That's a lot of players. That's 30 plus players per map. Now, if there's one thing that I personally like about DMZ comparative to every other extraction shooter on the market, including what seems like those coming out as well, is that we have a ton of players on a map. Now, Al Mazrah has the estimated 66 players. The other maps have maybe 10, 12, 14, 16, something like that, right? This means that every map is going to have 30 plus players. So we're going to have that real like Al Mazrah feeling, that Al Mazrah experience, right? And I think that's obviously like the most favored thing, you know, in DMZ is Al Mazrah and the amount of players that they are and the amount of experiences and engagements and adventures that you can have. So I think this is amazing news that every map will essentially be flooded with players like Al Mazrah, which I think is probably the number one thing actually that currently separates DMZ from all the other extraction shooters, is really the density in players, which creates for a lot of action. Number 3, they said they will have designated DMZ maps. Now, this is really good. I think this is good for a lot of reasons. If you play the current DMZ, you'd know that we got people doing like under map and in the wall glitching and stuff on all these different maps and stuff like that, which I kind of feel like is a result of the fact that we were like DMZ was connected to Warzone. So whenever they made changes there, you know, it kind of broke things in DMZ. And then when they abandoned DMZ, you know, because it was connected to Warzone, it felt like things were broken. Maybe that's not why, but it definitely feels like that. So I think designated DMZ maps is amazing if Call of Duty continues that trend where they make a game mode for us and abandon it. At least this time when we're abandoned in DMZ 2, it'll hopefully be more stable than the current DMZ 1. But hopefully overall, they just don't abandon the mode at all. That would be the best. The next thing is major updates every 2 seasons. Now, I don't really think this is like an amazing piece of news because in DMZ 1, we had major updates basically every single season. So I don't think this is like better for us, but I don't think it's bad either, right? That's fine. Like I'll take it. Major updates every 2 seasons is just fine. The current DMZ we have gets no updates. So something's better than nothing, right? The next part they mention is that smaller updates every season / mid-season. I really like the mid-season part because that means, you know, if things start to feel a little stale, maybe after a month or 2, boom, they're going to do something there. And hopefully that includes things like balance changes. So they nerf incredibly powerful, overpowered weapons like the one-shot shotgun, the RGL, etc. Right? The next thing they talk on is that there will be 4 maps plus a headquarters. Now, I think it's really interesting how they mention headquarters in quotations. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm led to assume that it's more than just a menu, right? I'm led to assume that that's like a physical location that we can walk around inside, similar to like Delta Force, right? If you've played Delta Force, you know that they have this like little area they can walk around in, right? Where you can talk to vendors and upgrade stuff. Tarkov has a similar thing called the Hideout where you can walk around in it. Cycle Frontier also had a similar place where you could walk around in the city, go to your bedroom, things like that, right? So I think headquarters being right next to the listing of 4 maps means that we'll have something we can walk around in, which I think would be amazing Absolutely amazing. I love the sound of that. I like where they're heading with that. The next thing they mention is that DMZ will be a separate mode from Warzone and multiplayer. Now, anybody that plays DMZ, anybody that was here from the start till the end would know that this is a godsend. And hopefully that means that DMZ/extraction will become a main mode in Call of Duty, because the only other main modes in Call of Duty are multiplayer and Warzone, which they continue each year. So if they separate DMZ, one, I think we'll have less bugs overall, but two, it might mean that we'll have developer support past the first year of the game. So that's huge news, definitely stuff I like to see. The next thing they talk about is that events will occur during matches that are crucial to survival. Now, we had things like this in DMZ 1, sort of. So I wonder if that's going to be expanded upon. There was a time when in DMZ in some of the seasons, we had like these hazard zones where, you know, airstrikes and cluster strikes would go around the area and you'd be able to find really good loot in that area as well. And it would kind of change from map to map and area to area. We also obviously have things like the gas expanding, which is an event that happens inside DMZ. I think more events is really good. I'm really excited about that. So anything more like that, really fun for the player base. I think that's a W. The next thing, and I think this is really big that they talk about, is that there will be 2 modes in DMZ. 2 modes. And those will be PvE only and PvPvE. That's perfect. That's essentially PvE and PvP, right? That's the 2 modes that you'll have there, which I think is great. Tarkov has shown that a PvE only extraction shooter mode is highly requested and people really liked it. Helldivers 2 also shows that PvE modes are highly requested and really enjoyed by a ton of different people. However, there's a lot of us that also like PvP. And so it's important to have that experience there as well, as I do feel like that is more of the original extraction shooter experience coming from like Tarkov or Division 2, Dark Zone, right? So having both options is only going to make the player base bigger, which is great. It's going to allow more people to come in and play. However, and I think it's really important that Activision thinks about this, they have to do it just like Tarkov, okay? And what I mean by that is they have to separate the progression between the 2 modes. You can't have the same progression shared between the 2 modes, because what will then happen is players, sweats or casuals, will go into PvE, complete a bunch of missions, gear up a ton, then go into PvP and stomp on players that don't have that progression, that gear, and all that power that they acquire through, you know, going through the game, right? So it's important that these are separate. You want to play PvE, you start from level 1, you do your stuff there. If you want to play PvP, you start from level 1, you do your stuff there. That progression will be saved so you can complete both of those experiences. And that makes it really good for casual players, because maybe they just like PvE. So they start out in DMZ with PvE. They climb through the missions, they have a bunch of fun, they put maybe 100 hours, 200 hours in PvE. And then they go, you know what? I want to spice it up. I want a little more stakes. You know, I feel pretty confident. I've had a lot of good times. We've done missions, you know, we've explored the maps, etc. Let's go to PvPvE. And then you start from the beginning and it's like a whole new adventure. So I think that would be absolutely amazing. I'm super excited to see news about DMZ 2. Again, it mentions that it will be in 2026. Now, keep in mind, that doesn't mean we'll get it at the beginning of 2026, because Call of Duty launches towards the end of the year. So at the end of this year, we're going to get whatever Call of Duty gives us, and then it's going to go around one more year back to like November, and then we would then get DMZ 2. Let me know what you guys think. I'm super excited about this. There's nothing better that we could have asked for. Who knows if this is real? Let me know if you think it is or not.